Good afternoon, everybody. This is the real graveyard shift. So I was going to say everybody up and do 20 push-ups except for Ian, but I'll let you off the hook for now. And Ollie, by the way, thanks for making me realize I've got muscles in my body that you don't use for mountain biking. So thanks for that. Just first and foremost, I'd really like to thank Jez, Bruce, and the EarthRanger team. Firstly, my tummy thanks you. And secondly, it's amazing. Quite often you get software companies that get you and sell you things, and you get things in place, you integrate it. Getting all of us peers together, Bushians and people that things, to be able to have a discussion, fruitful discussions, goes above and beyond. So thanks very much from my side, and I'm sure everybody reiterates that. Thanks so much. Quickly, to just give you a context. So Bruce asked me to talk to you about EarthRanger and applications. So my talk's a little bit different to operational discussion. Having been had the privilege, like Doc mentioned this morning, having been the CEO of Sabi Sand and now CEO of NRT, two very, very diverse landscapes. I'm going to give you some context for NRT, where I'm currently working in the Northern Kenya landscape, and then to Sabi Sand. And my talk is going to be very much about how do you manage EarthRanger as a manager, and how do you bring capacity on the ground to be able to have your staff and everybody else functionalize, use it, and how do you functionalize it to the people on the ground that really need to use it at the end of the day, with us as our community conservancies. So Northern Rangeland Trust, if you look at the areas there that you can see, I think it looks a bit brown there on the side, it's quite a vast landscape. It's massive. It's currently 6.2 million hectares. It's not small. It's quite big. So yes, it covers a lot of ground. But a very important part about this, what you're seeing there, this is 6.2 million hectares and indigenous communities owning their land, managing for themselves, by themselves. Okay, recently I was very fortunate to go to the Iucn conference for conservation. And almost every discussion was around indigenous communities managing the land and how they do it. And in effect, if you look at Northern Kenya, the communities, more than 60% of the wildlife is in your communal areas, as opposed to your parks. So with the communities looking after their land and both being a pastoralist or being a conservation entity, they are in essence being the custodians of protected areas. So bringing community governance and transparency, your communities are looking after what needs to be looked after. And in an NRT, we've got a community conservancy, actively community looking after black rhino sanctuary for themselves, by themselves. Okay, so the amazing things, elephant orphans. And let me ask here, who has not heard of an antelope called Hirola? One or two hands? Okay. So in essence, if you look on the bottom right-hand side, I didn't have a pointer or something, but on the Somali border, not far from the Somali border and the coast, we've got a sanctuary of Hirola, a highly critically endangered antelope. It was a spectacled antelope, which is got amazing. Once again, communities managing a sanctuary of Hirola with Al-Shabaab running around there. So it's a very, very diverse, very a magnificent area. I invite anybody to come to Northern Kenya and look at the landscapes. It's absolutely amazing. So in essence, if you think about the modern treaties being signed, that we just had COP taking place, and once again, talking about conservation, climate change, etc., and the 30 promises that has been put in place. If you look at the amount of hectares under community conservation, already 10% of Kenya is directly under conservation for the communities and by the communities. So some amazing stories that's been told in Northern Rangeland Trust. So just to give some context in terms of scale and size, 120 land cruisers, 1,300 scouts and rangers, 280 staff NRT directly, with including the conservancy. So we're talking massive logistics, and once again across the landscape for aeroplanes, and once again stakeholders is immense. And it's to the world, a very interesting world of bilateral donors, USAID, EU. I mean, you've got the most amazing donors, but that comes with amazing funding and support, but reporting and admin around that is quite heavy. So thank goodness for EarthRanger and people that can manage this effectively. It makes life a lot easier, reporting M&E and data analysis, etc., etc. And then very interesting in this landscape, Northern Kenya, to your folks that's been there, it's a harsh environment, not an amount of people. And today you might have rainfall and western Samburu, and people quite literally take their cattle, pick up their house, and travel 200 to 300 kilometers with their cattle to go to a place. So it's amazing, and then that brings quite often intertribal conflicts, which is very sad. But then if you think about Brana, Turkana sitting around the same water hole where elephant comes in to drink water, unfortunately it brings some tribal conflicts, and unfortunately a lot of illegal weapons in northern Kenya due to proximity to other countries where there's insecurity. So NRT amazing, but then again the stakeholders with NRT is incredible. I mean, you've had discussions from Ian Douglas Hamilton and Chris on Save the Elephants, spatial movement. Because the communities are conserving their areas, you've had an area, and sorry I don't have a pointer, for elephants for the first time in more than 30 years crossed a natural migration route from the Matthews Mountains all the way to Marsabit and back again. I mean, that in itself is goosebump stuff, where there's natural ingrained migration routes is there, peace and security being led into an area where there quite often was insecurity. Animals are realizing the landscape of fear is taken away and things are happening. So some really exciting things taking part there. And one thing I really have to give kudos to the Kenyan government and the Kenyan people is government, parastatals, counties, and the people on ground, private, bilaterals, NGOs, philanthropists, all work together to secure the area. Okay. Quite often other African countries that I worked in that's antagonistic to each other. And that's why you've got rates, and the numbers, Chris actually mentioned the numbers, how poaching has dropped. Rhino poaching was 0. Once again, we've got KWS here, where if there's a follow-up with rangers, it's rangers from the county and KWS all working together to safeguard the area. And once again, for the communities, by the communities. If there's a raid on cattle, everybody work together to get the cattle back. Because why? It stops additional retaliation taking place. So very, very diverse, but once again, people working together. And I think if we can take anything out of today's discussion, if we work together, we definitely are stronger. And once again, we've got this amazing platform that enables us to not just spatially, but also visually find data analysis. We are a creature of habits. Some people like to put their left shoe on first and then their right. So once again, having spatial analysis where you can see if there's a naughty person, if he's going to put his left shoe on, then you help them put their left shoe on. Okay. So this is all these scenarios that comes again. The platform really makes a difference. Let me not chat too long on that. Okay, and then the former reserve that I was able to manage was Sabi Sand Game Reserve, arguably the premier ecotourism reserve in South Africa. This is a completely different scenario in terms of 62,000 hectares. Sorry, I thought somebody else something. 62,000 hectares, 32 commercial lodges, 54 lodges on that area, 2,800 staff members. 80,000 people within 5 kilometers of the fence, 500,000 people within 20 kilometers, 2.5 million in the local Bushbuck Ridge municipality. So if you talk about a rural-urban interface, this is as abrupt as it gets, and that's the fence. So it's a very different scenario, people moving in and out. So the reason why I'm showing this, and once again, you'll see I've copied the slides, having the Sabi Sand insignia and the NRT makes my life a lot easier displaying this and copy and pasting the presentation. But secondly, showing how EarthRanger is used by 2 different entities, protected areas or conservation entities for themselves, by themselves, as not just off the shelf. Each area, each conservation, whatever they're using it for, it's a niche and it's been changed. And once again, kudos to EarthRanger and the guys being willing to listen on the ground. We need it for ABC, need to apply it for that, we need to present it like that. So hence me showing the various slides with the different tops on there. Something that's very important is how you, as a senior manager, utilize EarthRanger. And if you look at the NRT thematic areas, there's a lot of things that might be very different from Sabi Sands to NRT. For instance, NRT includes marine ecosystems, forests, and something that's very coming to the fore is gender tracking. If there's community engagements or governance and training, we make very sure that who did we engage, how did we engage? Was it the elders? Was it the young warriors, the young men? Was it elderly ladies? Was it young ladies? Why? Future leaders identification, gender identification, and how are we training and how are we able to upskill that within our communities. And in a lot of these areas, ladies was marginalized for a very long period of time. But now through actualization, the governance, the training within the boards and the communities understanding that, it's becoming a critical thing. And once there's a SOCO. SOCO is basically a money lending scheme where the community put money together and they're able to facilitate from it. And the ladies has got 100% payback rate. The men not so much, so we'll see where that one goes. But once again, the EarthRanger has created a platform where we can realize who, what, where, when, how. And this is just the first slide on what NRT uses EarthRanger for and what it's being able to present that. Ladies and gents, I know we have got fatigue and I won't talk too long. Human-wildlife conflict, Victor mentioned that, is a massive issue. If you think about open landscapes in an area where it's critically dry, quite often your water areas and availability for pastoralists grazing is a critical scenario. So being able to map it, predict, bringing trends over time, Ian, to your point, absolutely. Now we can start being boxing smart and we can be proactive on what we can implement and how we can implement it. Once again, lovely, you can see the ladies there presenting the beadworks that they've done for themselves and in creating job creation, everything through that. And yes, Jess, you mentioned you're quite partial to giraffes. Pachyderms is under the skin, so it's just a slide on that one. We'll put it there. So, ladies and gents, and then to the other point, to Sabis and being able to manage, for them, critically important, security with rhino poaching being their main concern around there. EarthRanger for them has been focused and tailor-made to first and foremost look at their security intelligence and the systems around that. The analysis, what you can do and how you can do it. And then obviously being a conservation area, their wildlife tracking systems, what they can do, and the predictive modeling around that. So my main discussion that I wanted to discuss today is managing EarthRanger. And like anything else in life, and Alina, to your point, quite often if a need is identified by the staff on the ground to have a platform like EarthRanger to get management to buy in is a very interesting scenario. Okay, but if you don't think tech or using a platform, don't get it as your senior management, because it is a problem. You've got the most amazing things at your fingertip. Once again, if you're not going to utilize this, like riding a brand new Land Cruiser but driving in first gear all the time. So it's not going to get you far. And if you really want troubles, buy a Land Rover. But otherwise, let's just carry on. So what you wanted to, what I wanted to show you is managing tech comes with somebody that appreciates tech, and you need to be very clear what you want out of that tech. And my thing is, I've always said, you're always going to have your ranger core, your staff on the ground that implements your procedures, or your communities, what you want to need and how you want to do that. Unless you build the layers around the fundamental staff on the ground, like I said, be it rangers, be it your communities, that's where your challenges is going to come in. And these challenges like tech, training, what you can do, how you can do that, now you can start being effective in your implementation. So for me, always think in terms of your military OODA loops or your plan organized leak control. What do you want to do with your tech system? And once again, if your bottom up triangle, if you don't get to the point where management tries to use tech and you implement effectively, but the second critical point from my side, unless you empower the users down from there, once again, you're not going to get much traction because of data in, data out. Not quality data into the system is a problem. And for me, if you want to have a long-term process, the more you upskill and bring capacity to your scouts, your rangers, everybody on the ground, your community members to get your data into the system and then utilize this system effectively, you're not going to be able to function it. Okay, so it's very much a team effort and everybody needs to buy into tech. Otherwise, once again, very expensive thing. And I've seen some places where it's got the beautiful EarthRanger, it's got the televisions. Is it being functionalized? Might not be. Okay. So for me, it's application defined, very clearly defined. What you want to achieve, how you want to achieve it, and why. So it comes back to basic management systems. For me, one of the most important things is the analysis of the data that you've got on EarthRanger. And Jess was actually mentioning there's so much data out there. Are you mining the data effectively? Is there somebody within your staff that is breaking down that data? Be it through M&E or thank goodness now, I love Tableau. I love the dashboards of being able to affect it. These days in my position, thank goodness we've got 51 degrees and some amazing texts on the ground. I don't open EarthRanger all that much, but I very much use the data from that, speaking to my bilateral donors, thinking about management strategies to be able to implement on the ground. But we've got people to manage on the ground and analyze the data and present it effectively, whichever way you want to do it and whatever way you want to get out of it. So analytics to me is very important. The next step of that analytics is, where does it sit? Where does it go to? Okay, I quite often found that people get disillusioned on the ground if they don't realize what their importance is within the cycle of having a platform like EarthRanger. Data is analyzed, fed back to the systems, people on the ground. You've made a difference by putting this piece of data in the ground about this elephant you found, and this is the effects of that. Once again, effective feedback loops. Once again, you've got the data, you've got the tech, you've got everything else. Your people management around that is going to be critical. To my next point, well done, staffing. My thing is always skills development and training on the ground. It's going to be critical. Northern Kenya, more than 80% of the pastoralists moving around there is unschooled. And unfortunately, it's 90% for the ladies. But I'm very clear in saying unschooled, not illiterate. You've got the most incredible minds and brains moving around in those community pastoralist areas. So what do you do and how to do it? So in Kenya, there's M-Pesa system where payments gets done through the phone. Everybody's got a phone. Everybody understands it, although they might be unschooled. They understand what's happening and they'll be able to interact with that. So once again, what goes to my thinking is you can utilize tech, formalize data into the system and data out, whichever way it goes. It is an area where data is the range and the coverage in certain areas is very low. But once again, it goes to the adaptation of tech to be able to functionalize. Backbone, critical. Doc was mentioning it this morning, and I've been very privileged in working both the reserves where dimension data was involved and connected conservation. I mean, in Selby Sound, they're streaming 500 megs of any camera, LoRa, sensor, any gate back to the jock. I mean, you don't hear about speeds like that in some of the first world countries. But the idea is to make sure that once again, you've got data, you've got tech from where it is on the outside, feeding into the system and vice versa. Report back loops as a jock. If you've got a functional jock, and we work with NRT is on Leiwa, community reserve. So the jock is there, Leiwa and NRT work hand in hand, one jock, and you've got an incident taking place in West Pokot and Uganda's border, and that yet everything feeds back to Leiwa. You've got an amazing team there at Leiwa, and they can feed back command and control completely. That's what, 11, 12 hours drive by vehicle. Everything is functional once again on landscape because of connectivity taking place. So once again, if your backbone is effective, your EarthRanger can be so much more effective, or any platform that you do. And infrastructure, you've seen a couple of jocks, different pictures. Everybody's got a different scenario. And I found that initially when Henry and I was getting EarthRanger in place and putting the jock on, small things of ranger or star fatigue with necks looking up. You never think about it until you sit in that seat and you try and look up at a screen all day. And now with AI development and the automatic analytics, like you saw Doc with capturing and a person walking past, or animal identification, drones, I'm hearing some amazing things. Once again, thanks for bringing us together so we can hear about these things. I was very antagonistic to drones, but it seems like there's a changing world out there. And for me, very important is training and mentorship. Grover, you've asked about training, how long does it take, etc., etc. So like any other project in the world, helicoptering in and out, we quite often found is a problem because it doesn't give you skills on the ground. Once again, how long has the relationship has been going? From 2015, and we're still married. Although we've decided which side of the basin we're going to put our toothbrushes. And for me, that's the proof in the pudding, as having a long-term partnership, especially with something as intricate with the platform. So well done, guys. I've gone a bit grey in the process, but still working well. Okay. And modulation. And once again, kudos to the EarthRanger team, where to address to your point, as for instance, if a reserve like we would need it, training for our staff on certain landscape mapping and what you can do, an analysis, Esri, DRI coming in and training, and you saying, no problem, we can integrate. Be it a fleet integration system, you say, no problem, we can integrate. And for me, that makes a difference to each manager on the ground, being able to functionalize the platform to their needs and their functionality. So very, very important. And whichever, you've heard about smart, you hear about all these different integrations. And every time EarthRanger says, no problem, let's see what we can integrate. For me, that's critical because each place is unique. And each one of you sitting, if you're thinking about EarthRanger, you're thinking from your perspective, which is very unique. So if you can put that cap on or take it off, it's nice to have a partnership like that. And to your point, the operational command and control, everything is really fantastic. I'm going to cut through the rest of it because once again, everybody's discussed. Benefits, having things like centralized system operations, automated reports. Once again, having a partner like EU, where you've got a 200-page procurement prescriptions, you need to make sure that you put everything in place. Otherwise, you're not going to get your funding going forward. Once again, that's all captured into below what you can do, what you can't do. And then our bigger partner, an EarthRanger, and you put that in place. So very, very important for us. And once again, in our current scenario in NRT, governance, transparency, security, and peace is critical. If you activate the elders or wazees to go sit under the tree with some naughty young morons, it's something that works in the Kenya landscape. Okay, so is this something we can replicate? Can't. And now the sharing of a conference like this, then as you were talking about community sharing, what's worked, what hasn't worked, now we're force multiplying. Now we're really going forward. And once again, just showing for Sabi Sand, for their to below analysis, it was related around security. For NRT and lower, a lot around peace, governance, security, etc., wildlife. Interventions, very, very much. An intervention quite often means, if it's through analysis, you know, the certain time of year, there is going to be conflict between Piranha and Tucana at a certain watering hole. Deploy the elders, they're going to talk, and they're going to try and talk the warriors down, the young morons, and you've avoided conflict, you've avoided life loss, and you've avoided animal loss in the process. Very proactive. Stock theft, major issue in northern Kenya. Stock theft and retaliation because of stock theft is a problem. And very, very good for us as gender analysis, what you can do, BMUs. Yeah, you've got a group from our marine areas doing analysis, octopus harvesting areas. There's the most amazing things. Once again, NRT, 79 projects, 39 donors across 43 conservancies and counting, and with all of our partnerships. It is a massive thing. Once again, EarthRanger as a platform has really been proactive for us. So thanks very much, and all our partners as well. Greatly appreciated. Thanks so much.